Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. If you've ever wondered how your relationship with your maternal impactor impacted you, the adult females in your life, the people who raised you, then this episode is for you. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 7 different types, they're archetypes of mothering. And I'm giving you some questions that you can ask yourself to sort of figure out what you experience and whether you do or do not have a mother wound, and some steps you can take towards healing if you do have a mother wound. So before we get into it, if you happen to be new to this YouTube channel, please introduce yourself in the comments, say hello, because we are a friendly group. Make sure that you subscribe and you hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I roll out something new, which is every Tuesday and every Thursday. And I wouldn't want you to miss it because you're the ones I'm doing it for. Thank you so much for all of your questions and your comments. I love how active this community is. You know, I read everything and I love to highlight your comments. So this is from Flying Chef under the episode, How to Set Boundaries with a Critical Mom. She says, Terri, I think you could have a pay-for-service subscription for your people to use pre-recorded, your great dialogue, messages for voicemails. You could have categories like critical mom or dad, unmindful, anybody, all issues. I would sign up. So you want me to be, it's like Cyrano de Bergerac, where it would be my voice telling people off for you? I would love it. I think it's a brilliant idea, Flying Chef. Thank you so much for taking the time to actually drop your comment. I really do appreciate you. All right, let's move it on into today's content. So, in this community, I've seen so many women in particular struggling with their relationship with their mothers, whether the mother was absent, whether the mother was abusive, whether the mother was super critical. And there can be so much shame and guilt and longing associated with not having a good relationship or not having the relationship that you wanted with that maternal impactor. So it's super important to process, understand, and honor your feelings, which is why I'm talking about the mother wound. I also have the mother wound course coming up. It starts August 16th because you guys have been asking me. So here we go. If you're interested in that, go to terricole.com/mother wound and join us. Now, you don't have to be raised by your biological mother to have a mother wound, right? We're all clear about this, and to have a complicated relationship with the way that you were mothered, or with your own relationship to motherhood. So I use the term maternal impactor intentionally to describe the individual who raised you, if it was a female, right? Maternal impactor. If not, it would be a paternal impactor. But it could have been a foster mom. It could have been an auntie. It could have been a grandmother. So I just want to get clear about that up front, because I think that it's important that everyone feel included in this, because the thing is, you are included in this. There's many types of relationships that you could have, but I'm narrowing it down to about 7 that you potentially, the experiences that you had. You could have had a maternal impactor who was someone who was not well emotionally regulated. So it could look like erratic behavior, not being sure what you're going to get, sort of hot or cold, either excessive emotional ability and, them being sort of exploding with their own emotions, or they could have a lot of anxiety, or they could have depression. And not knowing what you're going to get creates a hypervigilance, and where we're always sort of looking to be like, how's it going to be today? What is happening today? The unpredictability of this mother type creates a chaotic home atmosphere, because it's scary. It's like walking on eggshells all of the time, which is really stressful to children. So what do we learn? I mean, nobody needs to teach us how to sort of duck out of the way of pain. We learn how to either become invisible. We just want to get out of the line of fire, but we become hypervigilant in anticipating the different moods of a hot and cold maternal impactor. And hey, a lot of the things that we learned in our childhood homes, even though we did them because the situation was not adaptive, the way we respond, we learn to protect ourselves. That is very adaptive. Then what can happen, though, is you get into adulthood and now you're having all of this anticipating the needs and wants and moods of other people, it becomes maladaptive. So those are the things that we want to look at. And if you have trouble regulating your own emotions, it could be that you had this type of hot and cold maternal impactor figure. You also might have experienced role reversal, where you were parentified as a child, right? Where it might mean that you were taking care of the person who was supposed to be taking care of you. And this is a really painful experience because you don't have the skills, first of all, to do it, even though you do the very best that you can. It like sets a kid up to fail, because how is a 7-year-old taking care of a 40-year-old? And yet, if you've been in that situation, you know how painful and scary it is. It creates deep wounds, fear of abandonment, and it also can, in your adult relationships, look like always seeking safety, a desire to control outcomes, and the feeling states of other. It creates high-functioning codependency, and this can be fueled by this role reversal in a mother-daughter, mother-child relationship. If you're really dialed into the people around you and their moods and what they need and how they feel, that could be a result of having this type of maternal impactor. What about the me maternal impactor, me mom, where it's all about them, where this is the self-focused mother does not see her children as separate from her, right? So it's almost like you're more of an extension of that maternal archetype than you are actually, and the family system itself will organize around this self-absorbed maternal impactor, where, it could be someone who's narcissistic, or there could be some other cluster B personality disorder happening there. As a child, though, of a self-absorbed maternal impactor, you learn that shining is not a good idea. Do not be too bright. Do not shine your light. Your job is to shine the light on that parent, because that's what they want from you. You learn how to be like the loyal subject of others, and you end up probably being like incredible supporter to the other people in your life. You could be a great problem solver with your friends. They probably come to you because this is a role that you know so well, is make it about other people, But of course, you can see how that's dysfunctional, and that doesn't really serve you. You need relationships and friendships where there's mutuality, where you're allowed to shine. And it's painful to feel like you are threatening your own parent, and that is dangerous to shine. Is really a painful situation to experience in childhood. The next archetype is the BFF mom. Did your mother see you as a friend to her? Sort of hanging out with your friends, treating you as an equal, have inappropriate conversations with you, sharing too much about her life or her private life. This creates disordered boundaries that can carry into adulthood, disordered emotional boundaries. It can be difficult to individuate in a healthy way from a maternal impactor if the boundaries of motherhood and friendship are blurred. Because when you really think about it from a healthy standpoint, you can have a very friendly relationship with your maternal impactor. I have a great relationship with my mother, but she's not my friend. I'm totally devoted to her. She's devoted to me and my sisters. But even though we go out, shop, we do things, go to lunch, but she's always my mother. And that's it. And there's safety in that. My mother was actually very intentional when my sisters and I were growing up, because we were not that far apart in age, 4 of us, under the age of 6, I believe it was. And my mother was a young mom. She started having kids when she was 19. So she went out of her way to not be the cool mom, quote unquote. She intentionally didn't dress provocatively. She was always very attractive, but she went out of her way to not threaten us, to not try to be one of the kids. She was the mom. But I know in later years, we sort of talked about it, and she said, because I was still young, having kids that were becoming teenagers, I went out of my way to really stay in my role as parent. And I really appreciated that. And I think that when you grow up with a parent that wants to be your friend and sort of makes it about them too, it's a burden on the child for sure, where in a healthy family system, it's a child-focused system. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying a child-obsessed system. I'm just saying child-focused because that is actually appropriate. And I know that there's many families that are child-obsessed, and I'm not, that is an episode for another day. You might have had a maternal impactor who was a perfectionist. And this is super painful too, because that means they're very anxious and fearful and super controlling, hypercritical of themselves, but also of their children. So it isn't like she was just hypercritical of herself. She was hypercritical of you too. You just end up feeling like you can never get it right. It can really squash your desire to go for your dreams. If nothing was ever good enough, when you were growing up, you may still feel that way today. A lot of times we just turn into perfectionists from that experience. And it's a drag. It's depressing. If you're looking through that lens where you're a perfectionist, if 98% of what you did in that job or executed in that presentation was perfect and 2% didn't go exactly as planned, you're the person who's looking at the 2% and feeling upset about it. And that's how perfectionism just sucks the joy out of life, because it blinds us to see the good. And when you're raised this way, your worth and your value are so tied to your performance, right? What you achieve, how many accomplishments you have, but that's not the same as being loved for who you are. And in a healthy household, you want to feel inherently loved and not necessarily like you have to perform to be loved. And the sixth one is having a good enough mother. And this is a mother who knows she doesn't have to be perfect. She has to be good enough for the kids to thrive and be resilient, right? This kind of maternal impactor is clearly the parent, right? Doesn't need anything from you other than the connection and respect and the things that she teaches you. But children with a good enough parent, a good enough maternal impactor, they feel free to be themselves. And of course, there's boundaries when you're a good enough mother. There are boundaries in there too. Children need boundaries. We thrive as kids when we have healthy boundaries. So we need to know the rules so that we can stay in them or step outside of them. But we need to know, which is where boundaries are really helpful, and having a system in place in the home is helpful, and having the way that we do things, having a schedule is very helpful for kids. This type of a mother isn't perfect, but she knows how to handle her own emotions. She can emotionally self-regulate. It's like she's got balance. She focuses on her kids, but she has other things in her life too. So it's not just mothering, because a lot of times that can put pressure on kids. And I don't mean when kids are little. A lot of maternal impactors decide for the first 5 years of life, if you have the luxury of staying home, that you're going to do that. But you're not putting undue pressure on your kids to be everything to you, because it does feel like pressure. But the good enough mother, the healthy mother, knows that your kids are not there to fulfill your needs. That isn't their job. That will be their job when they have children, right? Your job is to fulfill their needs. So it's good if you grew up with this kind of mother, because it gives you space to grow, because you can change, you can be your own person, you can make mistakes, because there's a secure connection there. There's an inner sense of safety when you have been and are securely attached to that early caregiver. In this case, we're talking about maternal impactor. If you fail, it's not the end of the world. I'm not worried about talking to my mother about my failures, right? Because I know that she loves me for me. She wants me to be successful because that's what I want. But with this type of a parent, you feel inherently worthy of their time, attention, and love, because of their own relationship with themselves is healthy. They've worked out a lot of their problems. I'm not sure how my mother did it, because she didn't have any therapy. She started having kids at 19. But she had her problems. But I would say, all in all, she was pretty stable in her. She was always the same. I could always count on her to be who she was, which was present, loving, never like I told you so. So I feel like I got I'm blessed to have had that experience, which has everything to do with me doing what I do in my life now, because there was a lot of love in my young life and in my life now from her. She's almost 86 now. And that made me feel like there was more than enough love for me and for everyone else. Anyway, that was a side note. Moving on to the 7th archetype, which is the unavailable or the rejecting maternal impactor. And this is someone who could not meet your physical and or emotional needs in childhood. So you might have grown up feeling unloved or rejected. If you had a caregiver who is not emotionally attuned, right, it can cause inconsistencies in your relationship with yourself, right? So a caregiver who is sporadically attuned to you and your needs, that directly impacts you having inconsistencies with the way that you relate to yourself, because that early relationship profoundly impacts our self-image and our self-relationship. That is important to be able to identify. Did you have a rejecting mother? One who just wasn't there, right? This is where neglect comes in if you had the rejecting or the unavailable mother, because they might have provided something for you, but if they were not emotionally available to you, you were not getting what you needed, which this profoundly impacts how we are in the world and how we are in our relationships. So all of these, the reason why I wanted to cover these today is because we are moving into the Mother Wound course. Enrollment is open right now. And if you've always felt like there's been something off with your relationship with your mother and wondered, is this the way it's supposed to be, right? You might have a mother wound. If any of these archetypes, except the good enough maternal impactor one, resonated with you. So for clarity, the mother wound is a psychological and emotional injury that can stem from growing up with a mother or mother figure, right, who was not emotionally attuned or available. So this can include someone who is physically present but emotionally checked out. And I feel like a lot of times people don't recognize this. They're like, I don't know what I'm complaining about. My mother was always home. I'm like, yeah, some of my clients, your mother was home, but she started drinking at 3 p.m. and was passed out by 8:30. So she was there, but she wasn't there. So wanting you to really understand this for yourself, because these wounds, these are the invisible scars a lot of times that we're trying to understand why we can't figure out our self-esteem in our life, or we can't figure out our relationship with other people. And a lot of times it comes back to having a mother wound. But those in my community, in this community, there's a tendency to minimize and be like, it wasn't so bad. Other people had it worse than me. So just because you didn't have a relationship where someone was physically abusing you, let's say, that doesn't mean you don't have a mother wound. So if that's interesting to you, you can get all the details, terricole.com/mother wound. This is Understanding and Healing the Mother Wound. That's the name of the course. And it is super impactful, and I'm doing it live. I've only taught this live one other time. I love this course so much. So many of you have asked me if I would do it live, which means I'm there throughout the entire 6 weeks. And we have a Q&A each week. It's really an amazing course. I also created a guide for you from this episode. So go to terricole.com/guide if you want to get some questions to ask yourself if you're trying to figure out which of the archetypes is you. And I'm also giving you an exercise that you can do, the baby picture exercise, which I probably have given you before, but if you actually haven't done it, I think you're going to love it. It is super impactful. So I hope that this was helpful to you. If you think you have a mother wound or you could benefit from healing from it, please join us in the Mother Wound course. Just go to terricole.com/mother wound. And as always, take care of you.